Hello and good day. So, some advice on calculating various expenses to better budget. So, what I'm going to be talking about today is some advice and some variables that most people tend to deal with, and how to better picture and mathematically figure out and budget for them, since a lot of people have difficulty imagining how to begin budgeting and how to get an accurate representation of the numbers. In addition, I'll go on how to determine more what is your need and truly a minimum expense, or at least as close as you can get within your willingness to live for a accomplished goal, and what you just think is necessary, whether it's somebody selling an object to you, or a subscription to you, or you just wanting that so much that it is apparently outweighs the value of you getting that much closer to whatever goal or dream you have. And if it's so, then so be it. But if not, then you need to figure that out and decide. So, there are 4 general things that you need to cover first. First, before all those first 4 things, is to make sure that you don't have anybody that's going to come in and take your couch, take your bed, and take your last meal. So if you have debts, you need to make sure to manage them so that you're the ones that have a lien on the things you own, especially the first 4 things you need, or the first 4 categories you need, you have to make sure that they are not going to take that away from you. So you have to get current or figure out a way to stop that. Now, most people aren't in that dire of a situation. And the next step, though, is first, you need food. Second, you need housing. Third, you need transportation. And fourth, you need clothing. Now, that might not 100% be in the most important order. It might be something like, depending on where you place the clothing and transportation. But the point is, you need food. Now, this doesn't need to be fast food, or, you can spend $5 for a cheap fast food, or a couple of dollars for a solid meal. And if you do the math for the ingredients, you find that it is way cheaper to cook at home. Second is your housing, which you don't want to be house poor, and you need to figure out those kind of numbers. Make sure you're living for what you need and without crippling your ability to grow your financial health. And that also includes your utilities, such as water, which is obviously very important. And then it's transportation, which you don't need a brand new car, but a used vehicle, and having something that can run, even if you need to repair it every now and again, is, in this day and age, is very important to being able to work, being able to get by, and transport oneself in most areas, in most situations. And then number 4 is clothing, which doesn't mean you need brand new name brand clothing every week or however long, but just enough to make sure that you have nice clothing that doesn't ruin your appearance, that makes sure to keep yourself warm and safe and covered. So, by having food, housing, and the utilities, the transportation, and clothing, you can fight to and live for another day, or live to fight another day. Meaning, whatever your situation is, if you have those 4 covered, you'll be able to keep on going and work or do something to improve your situation. Now, understand, as I went through them, that there is a different level of quality and expense to accomplishing the needs of those four. With food, it is far cheaper to cook at home almost every single time, unless you are cooking very extravagant meals at home. It is, with the transportation, a brand new car versus a used car. I have done many videos on this. A used car is a significantly better value, and unless you have the income and the built up wealth to just have a toy that loses 50% of its value in just a couple years, then you should not be driving a new car. And whatever car you do own, you should have it owned, not loaned, not borrowed from a bank. And with the housing, this one a lot of people have trouble with, but if you're renting, the idea is to be able to have enough money eventually by saving it up that you can buy a house, or at least do a down payment of significant portion. Although personally, I do not like having debt in my life, and therefore I would want to buy a house in full and rent until then, and obviously rent as cheaply as I am willing to handle until I can save up that amount. But other people, mathematically, they are not as afraid of debt, and they are willing to handle a little bit. Therefore, that at least do the 20% to not have to pay the insurance, the PMI, which is money from you to cover the risk of you defaulting. So it helps you not at all. It helps the bank. So be careful not to be house poor. And if you're buying a house, obviously the 15-year fixed rate loan, if you are going with a loan, obviously not more than 25% of your take-home pay after you include things like property tax and such. The idea is so you are not going to be house poor, because otherwise you are going to have so little room in your budget that by the end of paying that, you won't really have enough room to invest, to save, to pay off your debt, to do something. So be careful with that, and obviously figure out your numbers with those. And clothing, your clothing tends to last quite a while, and trying to find quality stuff that actually lasts, and only having however many sets. There are people who enjoy clothing, shopping for clothes, and therefore tend to get more than they need and switch out large quantities of them. You don't always need to do this, and figuring out which you prefer more, a new set of clothing that you that you don't need. Now, if you need more clothing, then fine, that's part of the clothing thing. But if you don't need and purposely buying excessive amount for decoration and enjoyment, then is the value you are paying worth delaying your dream that much longer? So, figuring out your base needs, your food, your utilities, your housing, your transportation, your clothing, and various things that you need to maintain, such as insurance for various things, and the various expenses, is how you get an accurate representation of the number that is your minimum living expense for the moment. And that the numbers can change based on the area, especially mortgages and renting. The difference, though, is your numbers can, even for your base needs, your numbers may be higher than necessary. You may want them higher than necessary because you prefer having that higher quality, or hopefully you're getting higher quality. And just understand and act with intention. You are intentionally choosing to pay more, delay your dream that much longer for this much benefit. And if you're not, then you need to figure out and improve. And that is the key parts to doing an expense part of your budget. And that is just with your minimum needs. Now, and the quality of your minimum needs. Now, your wants are a separate category that everyone tends to be a little unique. And oftentimes they also are a better car, a junk food or restaurant food, higher quality clothing or more expensive clothing, brand clothing, whatever it may be, and a better house or rent apartment. These are the kind of things that people tend to spend more on, and though technically they are within the minimum needs, they are higher than perhaps necessary. So just understand your budget and understand the numbers and understand what is more important. This much value that you are getting now, which will delay your dream by how much compared to another option, and just weighing these options, weighing these numbers. As a math nerd, I very much enjoy doing these kind of statistics, doing these kinds of experiments, and unfortunately, some other people do not seem to enjoy budgeting and doing numbers like that. However, the value is that you gain a great freedom and a great experience in being able to understand with great certainty the value you're gaining and the amount of time and effort and where it is all going, how you are progressing and improving financially and physically, how whatever goal and dream you have, how you're improving is a very motivating and important issue. Now, hopefully this helps you guys, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. If you'd like to hear more content like this, feel free to subscribe, and have a good day.